Live from Rocky River, Ohio. Welcome on in. I was about to say the Animal House. And for those who have been with me for a long time, you know that it's been 2 years since I've been on the show, an old school Animal House, and I was about to say it. But of course, welcome on into the bullpen. I am Adam the Bull. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for being part of it. We are brought to you, as always, by Bet Rivers, and I am so glad to be brought to you by Bet Rivers. And once again today, I have a parlay for you. If you were with me last Thursday, I had a 3-leg parlay that hit. I got another one for you coming up later today. So I'm looking forward to that. We'll share that with you later. I will take your calls. They're not really calls, but if you want to jump on with me live, I just tweeted out a link for you to jump on with me live about 5 minutes ago. So go look at my last tweet. If you want to be on camera and join me live, you got to have Google Chrome, and you can join me that way. Or have the Riverside app, but it's much easier with Google Chrome. So if you want to join me, we can do that. I'll take your calls. I see everybody on the Twitter chat, on the YouTube chat, and I will get to those calls as well. But make sure you check out the Bet Rivers website or app, whatever's more convenient for you. It's got player props. It's got spreads on all the games, including the women's Final Four that's going to be in Cleveland this weekend, including all the Major League Baseball games, everything you want. On my prop bet today, I got 2 games and then a over-under on a pitcher's strikeouts. And I'll give you the details on it coming up later. The Cleveland Guardians are off to a tremendous start. They are 5-2 to start the season. Their third and final road series to start this long road trip to start the year begins this afternoon when they take on the Minnesota Twins in about 2 hours. The Guardians will get their first day off of the year tomorrow. Obviously, this early in the season, you're playing in Cleveland or you're playing in Minnesota, where the Guardians are going to play today. Today's the home opener for the Twins, so they have the buffer day tomorrow in case there's a rainout. But the Guardians have gotten off to just the kind of start we had hoped. Certainly, it hasn't happened, I don't think, the way we've expected. If I told you before the season, or if you told me before the season that the Guardians had started 5-2, I would have said, okay, that's not impossible because you're playing the A's in the first 4 games and they're terrible. And then you're playing a decent Mariner team. But okay, I could see it, right? But if you would have told me that, I would have said, well, that means they've had at least 5 great pitched games. And that hasn't been the case. Shane Bieber has been great in his 2 starts. And Logan Allen pitched a great game yesterday. The other 4 starts have not been. They've been mediocre or worse. The pitching overall has been, outside of Bieber, fine. Not great, not terrible. Tanner Bybee, who's going to pitch today, did not pitch well in his first start. But the Guardians are where they are through 7 games because of the offense, which is something that none of us would have guessed. And again, it's a very small sample size. You don't want to get carried away. But I can only analyze the information we have. And through 1 week of the season, through 7 games, the Guardians' bats have been tremendous. They are tied for 4th in the majors and 1st in the American League in runs per game. The Guardians are averaging 6.57 runs per game, tied with Arizona, slightly behind the Cubs, the Pirates, and Atlanta. That's it. Now, I'm not going to keep repeating myself that it's early. You all know it's early. You know I know it's early. We don't have to stress on that. It's all we got. It's all the information we have. But it's been very promising so far. The bats have been great. Almost everybody in the lineup has gotten off to a good start. And what's really exciting about it is that, especially these last 2 games, if you look at who they've beaten, because the first 5 games you faced Oakland and then a rookie pitcher in Seattle who's barely pitched in the big leagues. But if you look at the last 2 days, the Guardians have scored 13 runs in the last 2 games, outscored the Mariners 13-2. And in those games, they were facing top-notch pitchers. Luis Castillo and George Kirby are 2 of the, 15 best pitchers, maybe even better than that. Certainly Castillo. Now, he hasn't gotten off to a good start, but the last couple of years, Castillo and Kirby have been two of the best pitchers in baseball, two of the best pitchers in the American League. And the Guardians roughed them up. They scored 4 runs and had 11 base runners in 5 2/3 against Castillo. And they scored 8 runs and let me see how many base runners. I don't remember. I want to say 11 against George Kirby. No, 10. So 8 runs and 10 base runners. So between the two of them, they scored 13 runs on those guys in about 8 innings and had 21 base runners. And 20 of those 21 base runners were hits. Quite impressive what the Cleveland Guardians have done. Yesterday, one of the most bizarre stat lines you'll ever see from a player. Josh Naylor was 0 for 3 with 3 RBIs. You don't see that very often. Yeah, you see a guy go 0 for and get an RBI, maybe 2 RBIs, but getting 3 RBIs without a hit or a walk is pretty much impossible to do. But there's some clutch non-hit. That's why the hits don't tell the whole story, right? In the first inning, Josh Naylor came up with runners at the corners. Oh, no. It was second and third. There's runners at second and third. He grounds out, run scores 2-0. In the second inning, comes up again, this time with a runner on runner on third, and he hits a sac fly, or runners at second and third, and he hits a sacrifice fly to make it 5-0. And then in the fourth inning, he had another sacrifice fly with a runner on third. Now, some of it's the luck of who's on base at the time, but some of it's, hey, Josh Naylor saying, I need to get this run in. I don't need to get a hit here necessarily. It's smart hitting. And Josh Naylor's, I got to say that I never was a big Josh Naylor guy. I thought he was okay, but I never thought he was an everyday player. I really didn't, because I never thought he'd hit left-handed pitching. And I got to say, last year, he took his game to a whole nother level. Not to be cliche, but he did. He was able to start hitting lefties and hitting them consistently, including good lefties. And what I've learned, obviously, in the last couple of years, more and more, is just how good of a leader he is on that team, how good of a teammate he is in general. He plays the game smartly. Yeah, the silly stolen base attempt. And everybody makes mistakes sometimes. But Josh Naylor is a smart player, a very good player. He's better than I thought. I will fully admit that. I thought he was okay. I thought he was like a 3/4 player, guy who played 3/4 of the time. But he is definitely an everyday player. He is the second best player on the Guard. Well, is the second best hitter on the Guardians. The third best player overall behind Jose and Jimenez in terms of the offensive players, not including the pitchers. But the Guardians plus 28 run differential is the best in the league. The Braves at plus 21 are second. To be fair to the Braves, they've only played 5 games. The Guardians have played 7. But still, nobody else is even the next highest in the American League are the Red Sox at plus 15, and they've played the same 7 games that the Guardians have. And then the Orioles at plus 14, they've played a 1 game less. So that's impressive. It's the third best mark in franchise history. The other 2 times that the Guardians did it, once back in the 20s, they won the World Series that year. And then in 1999, of course, where they made the playoffs. And so it's not that it necessarily means anything, but the fact that they've scored 46 runs already is quite impressive. Nobody had them being this high, even in a week, offensively. And what you have is the guys who have done it before, like Jose, like Naylor, like Jimenez, Kwan to a little degree. Those guys are hitting, but it's the young guys that you believed in, or you hopefully believed in Brian Rocchio. When the Guardians made that decision to give Rocchio the everyday starting job at shortstop, I was very excited about it. So far, he's made it pay off. He's played very well. Tyler Freeman's done a great job in center field. He's playing very well. Will Brennan has hit the ball extremely well to start the season. So, you got to be really excited right now. If you look at the on-base percentages, actually, of the guys who are playing regularly, the worst ones are actually Jose and Tyler Freeman. But Tyler Freeman's had some clutch hits, and he's got a 211 batting average, a 304 on base is not good, but a 421 slugging percentage. Even though he's only got 4 hits, he's got a double and a homer. Jose's hitting 273. He'll get the on base percentage up. Everybody else is getting on base. Will Brennan, Bo Naylor, Brian Rocchio, Naylor, Kwan, Jimenez, even Fry and Laureano all have an on base of 348 and better. 348's good. And so you got most of your lineup getting on base at a 35% clip or better. That's pretty special. And Andres Jimenez, who had a very disappointing second year with the Guardians, off to a great start. You love to see it. He's got 6 RBIs already, tied for the team lead with Jose. He's got 15 total bases, just one behind Jose and Steven Kwan. And Kwan, it's interesting. Kwan, his strikeout numbers are much higher than you expect. He's actually struck out 5 times. Only Austin Hedges, of course, and Bo Naylor and Brian Rocchio have struck out more. It's a little high for him, but he's been much more aggressive at the plate. He's hit 353. He's getting on base. He's been on base 13 times already, couple extra base hits. I love the way he's playing, and you're feeling good. Now, I still think it's still clear they have holes in this lineup. They don't have an answer in right field. They don't really have an answer at DH. But if Brian Rocchio and between Tyler Freeman and Will Brennan, you can get like 1 starter's worth of quality, it's a big difference. And we know Kyle Manzardo, or I guess we don't know it, but Kyle Manzardo should be up in the big leagues at some point before the end of the month and maybe chase the water by the All-Star break, or maybe even a little earlier than that. We'll see. It depends how well he plays at Akron. But it's an exciting time, and we'll see if they can keep it going. You got another 3rd straight day that the Guardians will face a very tough pitcher. Pablo Lopez, who's the Twins' ace, is going for them today. And so when that game gets going at 4:10, Tanner Bybee and Pablo Lopez, very tough matchup. Then the Guardians will be off tomorrow. The Saturday game is at 2:10. Carlos Carrasco and Joe Ryan. Joe Ryan is really a co-ace with the Twins. Lopez and Ryan are their 2 best guys. So the Guardians, who faced really no good pitchers in their first 5 games, now facing 4 tough pitchers in the row. They've dominated the first 2 in Castillo and Kirby. I'll be curious to see what they could do now in Minnesota against Lopez and Ryan the next 2 days. It'll be Carrasco against him. And then the final road game of this trip before they come back home, also 2:10 on Sunday. Tristan McKenzie, coming off a rough first start, will go up against Bailey Ober, who also had a first rough start from Minnesota. So we'll see what the Guardians can do. Twins are 3-2 to start the season. Guardians are 5-2, behind only the Tigers, who are 4-0. They've been rained out the last 2 days against the Mets. They're playing actually a doubleheader today, and the Mets lead that game. Mets, who don't have a win, they're 0-4. Lead the Tigers right now 3-2. That game's going to the bottom of the 7th inning. I think the Tigers just scored in the top of the 7th to make it 3. Yeah, they were down 3-0. They got 1 in the 6th, 1 in the 7th. So it's a 3-2 game there. And so there you go. All right, I'm going to start getting to some of your calls. I do want to talk to the pitching, some pitching in the Guardians and some early observations there. I want to give Stephen Vogt some time. I was critical of the opening day lineup. I didn't like the fact that Bo Naylor was on the bench opening day. He's played all but 1 game since, including 1 at DH. Austin Hedges has continued to be a disaster at the plate, but I acknowledge what he provides as a special catcher. It's not enough to have him playing too much, but it's enough that if they want to just have him go with Bieber every 5 days and maybe start him another game where Naylor has to be in the lineup 4 every 5 games, minimum, in my opinion. Now, 3 of those could be catcher and 1 could be DH. That's fine. But frankly, if I were the Guardians, I'd leave Hedges with Bieber, and that's the only time I'd play him. As good as he is defensively, he's just such a liability offensively. With Bieber, it's not as big a deal because the way Bieber's pitching right now, you're not going to need that many runs to win. Let's go to the YouTube chat. Again, if you want to join me, I tweeted out a link. I sent it about 20 minutes ago, roughly. It's the last tweet I put out. You click on that link using Google Chrome, and I can bring you on the air. You get your face right on the air. You get to ask me whatever you want. I'm talking baseball here, but if you want to ask about the Cavs or if you want to ask about the Browns, anything you want to get into, That's fine. James sends a message on YouTube. Let's bleep and go. And I could say that word. I don't know why I didn't say it. I need more baseball talk. You got it, James. Kevin, what's up, Adam? What's up, Kevin? Nikki, never stop the baseball talk, Bull. I won't. I love baseball talk. CJ, first time he's made the stream. Thank you for joining, CJ. Folks, if you're in the stream right now, if you're watching the show, please hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Please make sure you check out the Bet Rivers app or the website. It's very easy to navigate. I love using it, and you will too. So give it a shot. And I'll have my parlay for the day coming up. Although, yeah, I will give that to you in a second. Well, not in a second. In a few minutes here, we'll tell you what my parlay of the day is that I love. Give you a chance to hopefully win some money. CJ, need more Guardians coverage. Always like Bull's opinions on baseball. Well, CJ, I talk plenty of baseball here in my podcast, my Bet Rivers podcast. I talk plenty of baseball on the UCSS and also the Ultimate Cleveland Guardians show, which we do once a week with Zach Meisel. The next episode will be Tuesday at 10 in the morning next week. But we're talking baseball here today. Nikki V, guards have the best run differential in baseball. You are correct. Let's see. Double I says sacrifice fly RBI, I would guess. And James says Manzardo with a home run last night. You got to keep hitting because we want him in the big leagues. All right, let's take, we got a caller. Our first caller of the day. It's Corey. We'll bring Corey up here in a minute, see what he has to say. Welcome back, Corey. We had you on. You jumped in with me once before, didn't you?
Yeah, last time I had the AEW hat on.
That's right. All right. Well, how you doing? What's going on?
Indians. I'm doing good. This might be a weird question, but I listen to you guys pretty much every day, and a lot of times you call people slappies, and you have a lot of intense takes on things.
I'm too mean
and
sometimes.
I'm just wondering,
yeah.
You're a New Yorker. It's what we are. We mean well, but we talk with our hands. We do a lot of things. But I'm just wondering, like, if you had to interview, let's say, an Elijah Moore, who you've been overly critical on lately, or the Haslam, someone, how do you handle those type of interviews where you've killed these people, but at the same time, I mean, do you bring that up in interviews, or do you just play it straight and you're just as if they don't even know your takes on things? How do you handle those type of situations?
It hasn't happened that often that a person, because usually somebody I'm being pretty critical of is somebody that isn't willing to do a lot of interviews, and they may know I've been critical of them. I'm not going to be a phony about it. Now, like if Elijah Moore would to come on the show, would I be trashing him the whole time? No, I wouldn't do that. But I would say to him, hey, Elijah, I've been very critical of you. I wouldn't maybe go into the details of what I'd said, but I would admit in the interview that I've been very critical and disappointed in your play. I can't be a phony about it. I can't pretend I haven't been critical. Sometimes I'm harsh. Sometimes I'm too harsh, and I, in my head, I'm like, I'm too harsh. You get that is, as you said, as a New Yorker, that's just kind of, when you argued with your friend, when I argued with my friends as a teenager, you'd bust each other's balls all the time, and your arguments would be harsh, and that's just kind of how I grew up. I don't mean to be mean. Sometimes I am, and it goes too far, and I do feel bad about that. But that's what I would do, and that's what I have done a couple of times. I can't remember the last time we interviewed somebody that I've been critical of. I think it was Greg Newsom, because I had been critical of him, and I said basically that, and I talked about, hey, do you have too many distractions off the field? I can't remember exactly what I said, but it's happened with Greg Newsom. That's probably the most recent guy. I haven't been crazy critical with him like some other people, but I've been critical of him. All right, Corey?
Quickly,
go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to wonder, do you think this team can the Indians can truly compete if Tyler Freeman's your number 5 hitter on a regular basis? I like what Tyler Freeman's doing, and I'm happy that he's, playing the outfield compared to some of the, as you would say, some of the slappies that we had last year. But can Tyler Freeman be your number 5 hitter and actually be a good offense?
I don't think, and Corey, thank you very much for the call. We appreciate it. I would say that the Guardians lineup is not, you have to hit more home runs in the playoffs. I want to give them time to turn it around. And I think, in terms of, because even though they're hitting great, they're not hitting home runs. And I think ultimately it's going to be hard to be successful in the playoffs when you don't hit home runs. When the Guardians went to the playoffs 2 years ago, when they were lower down the home run ranks, not as bad as last year, remember, they beat the Rays in the playoffs, and then they played the Yankees. They had the lead, a 2-1 lead in that series. They let it get away because ultimately the Yankees were able to score more easily with the home run. They are going to need more power, and in a perfect world, yes, I like Tyler Freeman. I think he's promising. I like him way better than Miles Straw. But yeah, in a perfect world, he's batting 7th or 8th and not 5th. Yes, I would. I think ultimately, now, hopefully, we'll see if it's. I would love to say they're going to go outside the organization to get a power bat, but I think at this point that's unlikely, even in season. But the hope is that Kyle Manzardo lengthens the lineup. He brings you some more legitimate power, and that the guys, a guy like Tyler Freeman's hitting a little lower in the lineup. They are if they can hit like they've hit this week, the Guardians will be in the mix and can win the division. There's no doubt. But to win in the playoffs against the best teams, they are going to have to hit more home runs. They have to be at least middle of the pack in the league in home runs. They can't be bottom of the barrel. And that's going to happen with guys on the team, but it's these guys not on the team right now that are going to have to contribute to that. Unfortunately, I can't see them making a trade. Is it possible at the trade deadline, if this team is really good in first place and they can get a power hitter on an expiring contract for 2 months to play right field or DH or whatever they need at the time? I think it's possible, but this team has showed you in the last couple of years they're not all that likely or willing to spend money, unfortunately. Nikki V, which team has surprised you most early this year? It's a good question. In this first week, I mean, the Guardians' offense has been as big a surprise as anything. But as much as this pains me, I'll give you 2 teams. One doesn't pain me. That's the Pirates. They've played very well. They have the second, third best run differential in the National League. They're off to a 5-1 start. And they've got a lot of young players that I like. Now, they've beaten nobody. 4 games over the Marlins and 1 game over the Nationals. So, but still, they were a nobody, and I picked them to finish last in the Central, and they still may. I mean, they're only as good a start as they're off to. They're only 2.5 games out of the last place Cardinals. Actually, every team in the Central besides the Cardinals is 4-2 or better to start the year. But I got to say, for me, the most impressive start to the season has been the Yankees. And if you know me, you know that I hate the Yankees. But they not only start the season 6-1, but they've done it against 2 of the best teams in baseball. They swept the 4, and they've done it on the road. They got their home opener tomorrow. But the Yankees started 6-1 at Houston. We know they're a World Series contender. And at Arizona, who went to the World Series last year. I'm not a believer in the Yankees. I did not pick them to make the playoffs. I don't believe in their pitching. But their pitching, for the most part, has been very good so far this year. And their bats, they've been extremely clutch. The Yankees were amongst the least clutch teams in the league last year, didn't score a lot of runs late. But in that Houston series, and then again yesterday in that wild game where they beat Arizona, they scored a ton of runs late. So I keep it real. My man Monzo, his boy Anthony Volpe's off to a great start, and the Yankees look great so far. I hate it. I hope it goes south, but it's impressive. Yes, CJ, the Angels going 4-2. Very impressive. But who did they just beat? Was it the Rays? I can't remember now who they beat in that series. The Tigers obviously off to a good start at 4-0. Boston, a surprising start at 5-2. Obviously, the biggest disappointment at this point is the Astros at 2-5. And all the other teams with 2 or less wins are teams expected to be bad. Kansas City, mediocre. Oakland, we expect them to be terrible. The Mets and the Marlins are combined 0-11. And the Rockies at 1-6. Giants 2-5. You thought they'd be a little better, but I'm not big on the Giants. All right. Again, if you want to jump in, there's still a chance. If you want to join me live like Corey did I'll take a few more questions on YouTube. Floyd says, I'm a casual fan, but love the Ultimate Cleveland Guardians show. You and Meisel do an excellent job. I appreciate that, Floyd, and I appreciate you watching the live bullpen as well. Talking a lot of baseball here as well. I love it. And I love that you're a casual fan. Hopefully you'll hit the subscribe button for me today. James Ryder, are you worried about Eli Morgan? He's been a fan favorite for years now, but I think the league has figured him out. Eli Morgan's been awful so far, and I want to talk about the pitching early because the pitching's been a little disappointing outside of Shane Bieber. Eli Morgan, listen, he's been very up and down. He's been a relief pitcher who like many relief pitchers, can run very hot and very cold. We've seen a lot of extremes with him. Am I worried about Eli Morgan? No. I mean, because Eli Morgan is what he is. I mean, he's a decent relief pitcher who's off to a bad start. I think he'll be fine. I don't want to see him in high leverage situations, but right now with the injuries they've got in the pen, it's necessary. The good news is Tim Herron's pitched well, though he did get off to a good start last year. And Cade Smith, who was kind of a surprise guy to make this team, he's been lights out. He's gone 4 1/3 in 3 appearances. He's given up 1 hit, 2 walks, no runs, and he has 9 strikeouts. He's tied for second on the team in strikeouts with Logan Allen, who's pitched 7 1/3 more innings. So he's been very impressive so far, and you wonder if maybe he'll get some high leverage situations as we go. But Shane Bieber's led the way. Logan Allen was fantastic against the Mariners yesterday. Shane Bieber, 20 Ks, no runs, 1 walk, 10 hits in 12 innings, has been lights out. Very impressive against the Mariners. His next start, he faced the A's in his first start. They're terrible. Mariners' second start, they're decent. His third start will be the home opener on Monday against the White Sox. So another lineup that's not great. I expect him to continue to dominate. Let's see. B. Skrills. Yeah, I got to agree with you on the Yankees, and Soto looks amazing. He does. CJ, Angels 4-2 is surprising, no doubt. Jake B., when do we get Gavin Williams back? His few starts remind you of Garrett Cole. He looks a little like Garrett Cole physically. He's that size player. He has got huge upside. Gavin Williams has the potential to be the best pitcher on the Guardians. I think he'll be back. He's already rehabbing. I think they should get him back before the end of the month, which is great. Skrills, it looked like the Mets will win their first game. That's not over yet, though. It's not over yet. What's going on? I'll check on that game right now. Oh, in fact, the Tigers just tied it up. The Mets had a 3-0 lead going to the 6th. Tigers got 1 in the 6th off of Adrian Hauser, who started the 6th. They got 1 in the 7th off Drew Smith, and now they just scored a run in the 8th off Ottavino. So that game's not over yet. 3-3 top 8, so the Mets do not have their first win. Not yet, at least. Let's see. Skrills. Miami Marlins look terrible. Yes, they do. 0-7. First time in franchise history. Nikki V says Riley Green just did a game-tying homer. Thank you. I'm not able to watch the game right now, but I saw they tied it. I didn't see how it happened. Riley Green's a nice young player. CJ, Christopher Morel for the Cubs is super interesting. Not taking that third baseman job clearly, though, but as bad as something. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Christopher Morel is a outstanding young hitter for the Cubs who doesn't really have a position. He's already made 3 errors in, I think, 5 games at third base. I think he's going to be a DH. They don't want to pigeonhole him at a young age DH, but he's not good in the field. He's a good base runner, and he's got massive power. Love the guy, but he can't play the field. Corey Richmond, are the Cleveland fans still anti the name change or no longer a bigger divide? And there's always going to be people who are obsessed with the name change. At this point, we rarely talk about it. At this point, it's stupid to keep bringing it up. It is what it is. I never had a problem with it. I thought it was fine that they changed the name. They had to change the logo. The name was debatable. They changed the name. It is what it is. At this point, to be whining about it is stupid. James Ryder, Cade has been amazing. I guess my question more have been, would he be the guy? No. Right now, I'm not sending Cade Smith down. Not the way he's pitching. No chance. B. Skrills, I'm over the name change. It is what it is, right? Shorty Xander, must be tough mentally for Tim Anderson to go to the White Sox and the Marlins. Why? White Sox stunk. The Marlins stink. He should be used to stinking. CJ, only point out Morel because I wanted the Guards to get him. Christopher Morel would be a perfect designated hitter for the Guardians. Perfect. but I don't think the Cubs will trade him. Nikki V, do you like Shota? Shota Imanaga is a pitcher the Cubs just signed out of Japan. Made his first major league start in the Cubs home opener on Monday. He looked great. 9 strikeouts, 2 hits in his last inning, no runs. And he plays with a lot of enthusiasm. I kind of like that. So there you go. The Tigers Mets have gone to the bottom of the 8th, still tied at 3. All right, thanks to everybody who joined me as always. Thanks to Max and Monzo for producing here. Thanks to Corey for jumping in on the show. Thanks to all of you for sending messages to me on YouTube. I'll be back with the next podcast on Monday. I'll be back with the next live podcast next Thursday at 2 again. And I'll be back on for you to watch on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show tomorrow at 11 a.m. Until then, see y'all. Love y'all. Thank you for joining me. We'll talk to you next time. Where else but right here in the Bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by Bet Rivers. See you, everybody.